Far Point Farms here in the mountains of North Carolina. Well, summer's almost here. I've certainly taken this new Troy Bilt pony out a few times and driven it around, done some mowing with it. And I'm going to be doing some upgrades on it. I'm going to be putting some chains on here soon and putting some wheel weights on it. But today I want to take some time and do a tune-up. So I don't know if many of you have done tune-ups or not, but this is something you could pay $100 to have somebody else do, or you could spend probably $15, $20, get the parts off of eBay or Amazon, and do it yourself with just a few hand tools. So let's hope that you're willing to take that risk. This is really not all that hard. And I'll do another video on how to do an oil change on these. These Troy Bilt ponies, you want to make sure you keep up with oil changes. This is not a pressure lubricated oiling system. This does not have an oil filter. This is just what's called a splash system. So a low oil level is going to destroy this engine relatively quickly. And because there's no oil filter on it, it does get dirty quickly. So it's something you want to think about. But anyway, that's part two. Right now, I just want you to grab a couple of hand tools. What we're going to be using first is we're going to be replacing the air filter and the filter screen here. We're going to put those on there. I've also got a fuel filter we're going to replace. These were very inexpensive. Got a little WD-40 because we're going to lubricate a couple of the pivot points on this. Now, this doesn't have grease fittings, so just a little bit of spray lube will do you. I've got a rag just for myself. And then I've got a pair of line pliers, regular pliers. That's going to be used to get the clamps off of this fuel filter here. And then I've got this, which is just a little teeny pair of vice grips. I'm going to use that to pinch off the fuel line so that fuel doesn't leak all over the place while I'm replacing that. So that's that. On the other side, and I don't have it pictured here, but this is a 16 millimeter and a 3/8 ratchet. This is to get the spark plug out. I'm not going to replace the plug on this one, but I am going to take it out and clean it. I'll show you how to do that. And then lastly, you want to check all your tire pressures. This is kind of an all-in-one. This little thing, this is a Ryobi tool. This has a tire pressure gauge on the back and its inflator as well. I already went around to this one and inflated all the tires to spec. The numbers are listed on the side, so I would start with that. But to make this job easier, the first thing I'm going to do is actually take this hood completely off, and I'll show you how to do that right now. You're just going to lift up on it like you normally would. But you'll notice that right here, and it's hard to see with that camera, so. Okay, once you've got the hood open, you'll see that there's two hinges here and here. But before you go and pull it off, you'll notice there's no plug there. So you got these wires going to your headlights. So you'll need to turn those. We'll go ahead and take both those out. And that way, we're going to snake those out of the way. And we're ready. Okay, so this doesn't come out just by, you see that right there? You have to raise it up ever so slightly. And then I'm going to try to do this with my hands on here. You lift up, and that's it. She's out. So there you go. Now we've exposed the entire engine. That'll make our work a little easier. Is it necessary to do this step? Nope. Is it recommended? Yeah, why not? Especially if we got to take the carburetor off or clean it or anything. This one's in pretty good shape, so that's not going to be necessary. Okay, so here we are. We've got the top off. Now I'm going to go ahead and start on this side. Here's our fuel filter right here. My replacement is red, but that does not matter at all. We're just going to be looking to see. Some of these have an arrow, and they will tell you which direction you want the flow. If not, we just try to match it up. So this one's got pretty much the same design, so we'll go ahead and point it forward that way. Anyway, let's do the air filter first. You're going to pull up on this, fold it back, lay this forward, and here we go. And that's fairly dirty. Now, it's just, you know, you could get maybe another season out of that, maybe another half season, but I wouldn't recommend it. And also, I'm noticing this is very dirty. So that piece there is pretty ugly looking. So let's go ahead and replace that. You can wet this thing down with oil because this is supposed to catch your dust particles, so I will do that. I will take that one here, and I'm actually just going to use my WD-40. Spray that down a little bit, put that back in the slot, and this one here is a regular dry air filter. We're going to stick that right in there like so. And that is all there is to it. We'll reattach that. Now, if this was extremely dirty, you could clean out the whole area, but this one actually wasn't too bad. Probably because I washed it when I first got it home and blew out some of that garbage. So that's all there is to that. Not a big deal, right? You're going to pay somebody $100 to do that. Next is our fuel filter. You'll see here they got these clamps. They're squeeze clamps, right? You have to have a pretty good size pair of pliers, and you squeeze those together and move them back. You'll do the same thing on this side. Of course, they put this one a little bit in an awkward spot, but that's okay. Go ahead and get that. Same process applies. We're going to slide that back out of the way. Now, before you take this off, you do want to do this, and that is take your little hose pliers here. I've got this little teeny weeny pair of channel locks. These are just some generic ones, or vice grips, I'm sorry, and I'm going to squeeze that off. That means that the fuel will not drain out of this tank. Now, you will lose some fuel. That's going to be normal because you're going to have fuel that's coming through here and fuel in the filter. So you will use a little fuel. Be advised, you know, not a good idea to be smoking at this point, I would say. As far as taking it apart, a little twist and pull, and you're good to go. I would go ahead and reattach that like so. And then I'll do the same thing on this side. I'll kind of twist it and pull on it. And it's off. Oh, you see a little fuel coming out. Go ahead and reattach that. And grab the little pliers again. You're going to grab those snap rings or those rings and reattach like so. Now you can take this off and you're golden. Not a big deal, right? Making sure they got a good seal, nothing's leaking. That's it. I've replaced my air filter and my fuel filter. Let's check out the spark plug. Okay, hopefully you can see this okay. But this wire right here is what runs the spark to the spark plug, and it can be a little sticky, but you go ahead and pull that off. We'll set that aside. Right here you can see is the spark plug. You'll need that 16 millimeter. I have a 3/8 extension on there, but you might not need that, and we'll go ahead and remove that. Now for me, I'm not going to be replacing this. I'm just going to be cleaning it, so I'll need a small wire brush to do that. If you're going to replace it, they're not very expensive, maybe $3 or $4. To be honest with you, I just simply forgot to order it when I went ahead and ordered the rest of this stuff. And taking it off, that plug's not in bad shape at all. It's actually pretty clean. So you can see it's got a lot of black soot on there, but where you're looking for hard edges, if it's rounded at the tip, that's a good sign that there's wear there. So I'm just going to take my wire brush and clean that up. I'm going to get that carbon off of there. Now, one thing about these ponies is the Troy Bilt ponies don't have an hour meter, so it's hard to gauge, especially if you're buying one secondhand. You know just how worn they are. You know how many hours are on it. So it's hard to say what's due. And a good rule of thumb is to go ahead and do work like this if you're not sure, because, well, that way you can kind of get it on an hour schedule. These usually go on the schedule that, well, every 15 hours you do this, every 25 hours you do that. So not knowing how many hours are on the unit or how long it's been since it had to last tune-up or whatnot, it's just good common sense to go ahead and take care of this stuff if you're buying one secondhand. And if you are buying one new, just keep track of how long it takes you to mow the yard, and then remember how many times you mowed in a season. Earlier in this video I said that there weren't any grease fittings. That's not entirely true. There are 2 grease fittings on this mower, and they are right inside of these wheels. I'm going to go ahead and get my grease gun and we'll grease those up. That's pretty much it for grease points though. This thing does not have a lot of grease points. So we'll go ahead and retighten that, stick that back on. Another place you're going to grease is the throttle lever. So back here, I don't know if you can see it, but there's my throttle cable there. There's another cable, well, where it comes through at the carburetor here. I'll give it a little squirt on both of them. And then I can work that cable back and forth a few times to help get that lubricated. There we go. Now, one point a lot of people always want to say is, oh, make sure to put some oil down there, put some grease on that. According to the manufacturers, you are not supposed to grease those gears right there. And the reason is that it will collect all the leaves and dust and debris, and that ends up making it wear a lot quicker. So just leave that bare, do not put anything on there, make sure it's just free and clear of obstructions, and you'll be good to go. Alright, so other things you may want to do at this point, you know, you lubricated everything, you kind of checked over everything. Look for loose nuts and bolts, look for loose components. This one, the steering is slightly worn, but really not all that bad. Check your blades, check your belts. I'll make another video that explains how to sharpen blades because it's a little bit more complex than, well, than some of you might imagine. You'll notice my shield here is missing. I have one on order. You really should not operate these things unless necessary without that shield in place, because that stuff will go out and break windshields, hit people, cause damage. It really will. So I know that a lot of times when we're cutting through wet or deep grass, those chutes tend to get clogged up. But they're there for a reason. It's a pretty solid one, so I recommend replacing those when they break off, which I do have that on order. I've checked my tire pressures, I've looked at all my stuff, I have checked my battery. You know, a battery on these mowers only lasts about 3 years usually, so if you get 3 to 4 out of it, you're really doing well. 2 years is not unusual, especially in a cold climate like I have up here. But I've gone ahead and recharged that, so it's good to go. Next, and I'll do this in a second video, is time to change the oil. One thing I definitely do not like about these mowers is they have the absolute worst placement for changing the oil. It's that bolt right there that comes out, and it just drips all over everything. So I'll show you in part 2 of this how to change the oil and minimize the mess. You're still going to have a good mess here, but I'm going to tilt this mower up on the edge so that all the oil tends to run this way. You'll see I don't even have a whole lot of room to put a bucket or anything underneath there. So I'll use a funnel, which as you can see, this arm is in the way, so a funnel doesn't work. So I'll show you a trick on that. But for the last part of this video, let's go ahead and put the hood back on. And again, you're going to slide it down in there. There she goes. And then we have these wires to put back in because our headlight bulbs are here, so we want to snake that back up. Got our bulbs back in place there. Ran our cord up through. We're done. We also managed to do an air filter and spark plug cleaning or replacement, and a fuel filter replacement, and we lubricated everything and greased everything. So my little pony here is ready. Get it? My little pony? Anyway, my little pony here is ready for action. We're going to sharpen the blades in another video, but that'll be probably midway through the summer since this one already had the blade sharpened before I bought it. And I've got the chute on order. Maybe I'll show you how to put that on, but it's pretty self-explanatory. That is it. I'm Eric, the owner of Farpoint Farms, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, maybe you'll think about liking and subscribing, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
There's always something that needs a little fixing on Farpoint Farms. Freedom is mighty sweet.